The mockery begins. The massive shadow fell across Earth's moon like a dark omen. The Corvathian Grand Fleet had arrived without fanfare, simply materializing from hyperspace with the casual arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. 300 vessels of impossible size hung in perfect formation, each one dwarfing humanity's largest space stations. They were beautiful in their own terrifying way, with hulls that seemed to shift between silver and gold, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Ambassador Vex Corvain stood in his personal transport. As it approached the primitive human space station they called Unity 1, through the transparent walls of his ship, he could see the pathetic collection of metal and ceramic that humans called their diplomatic center. It looked like something his people might have built 10,000 years ago, back when they still used solid matter for construction. Dex was tall, even by Corvathian standards, nearly 3 meters in height, with the characteristic blue-green skin and silver eyes that marked him as nobility. His ceremonial robes shifted color with his mood, currently displaying the deep purple of supreme confidence. In his 7 centuries of life, he had delivered ultimatums to 73 different species across the galaxy. The result was always the same: fear, panic, desperate negotiations, and finally, inevitable surrender. The humans would be no different. They were young, barely 2 centuries since they had discovered faster-than-light travel. Their technology was laughably primitive. They still used fusion reactors for power and chemical propulsion for most of their ships. They had no energy shields, no quantum computers, no dimensional manipulation capabilities. By Corvathian standards, they were barely more advanced than the animals on their homeworld. As his transport docked with the human station, Dex reviewed the intelligence reports one more time. Humanity occupied only their home system and 3 nearby colonies. Their total population was less than 50 billion, scattered across 4 worlds. They had no significant allies, no advanced weapons, no hope of resistance against the might of the Corvathian Empire. The airlock opened with a primitive mechanical hiss, and Dex stepped into the human station. The first thing that struck him was how crude everything looked. The walls were made of actual metal, painted white like some ancient structure. The floors were covered with a soft material that seemed to be made from organic fibers. There were no floating displays, no energy fields, no sign of any advanced technology whatsoever. Director Sarah Chen was waiting for him in what humans called their main conference room. She was a small woman by Corvathian standards, perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair streaked with silver and calm brown eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations or signs of rank that Dex could recognize. Behind her stood 3 other humans, equally plain and unremarkable. "Welcome to Unity 1, Ambassador Vex," Director Chen said in perfect Corvathian, her pronunciation flawless. "Please, have a seat." Vex remained standing. It was part of the ritual, part of the psychological pressure that had worked on every species the Empire had encountered. He activated his personal holographic projector, filling the room with images of the Corvathian fleet. The displays showed the massive ships in perfect detail, their weapons systems, their defensive capabilities, their overwhelming power. "I am Ambassador Vex Corvin of the Corvathian Empire," he began, his voice echoing with artificial amplification. "I bring greetings from Emperor Zelth Corvin, ruler of 12 star systems and conqueror of 73 worlds." The humans watched silently. Usually, by this point, other species were showing signs of fear. Their heart rates would increase, their skin would change color, they would begin to tremble or cry out. But these humans just sat there, watching him with those strange, calm eyes. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into the Empire, Dex continued. You will surrender unconditionally within 72 standard hours. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your governments will be dissolved. Your population will be relocated to serve the greater glory of the Empire. He paused, waiting for the inevitable panic. This was usually when species began to beg, to offer desperate bargains, to plead for mercy. Instead, Director Chen picked up a simple white cup filled with some dark liquid and took a sip. Your alternative, Dex said, his voice growing harder, is complete annihilation. We have the power to turn your sun into a supernova, to crack your planets like eggs, to erase every trace of humanity from the galaxy. This is not a negotiation. This is your final ultimatum. Director Chen set down her cup and looked directly at him. Thank you for the message, Ambassador, she said quietly. We decline. Dex stared at her. In 7 centuries of diplomatic service, no species had ever responded with such simple, calm rejection. I don't think you understand, he said slowly. We have 300 warships. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy your largest cities. Your entire military couldn't damage a single one of our vessels. One of the humans behind Director Chen stepped forward. He was tall for his species, with silver hair and the bearing of a military officer. I'm Captain Marcus Webb, Commander of the Soul Defense Fleet, he said. We understand your capabilities perfectly, Ambassador. The question is, do you understand ours? Dex felt the first stirring of uncertainty he had experienced in decades. These humans were not reacting the way conquered species were supposed to react. They showed no fear, no desperation, no attempt to negotiate for better terms. You cannot be serious about fighting us, Dex said. We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than yours. We have weapons that can manipulate reality itself. Director Chen stood up slowly. Despite her small size, her presence seemed to fill the room. Ambassador, let me be very clear. We are not afraid of you. We are not impressed by your threats. And we are absolutely not going to surrender. She walked to a window that looked out into space. Earth hung below them, blue and white and achingly beautiful. You see that planet down there? That's our home. Every human who has ever lived was born on that world, or came from people who were born there. We have survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and wars that lasted centuries. We have faced extinction 12 times and always found a way to survive. She turned back to face him. Do you really think we're going to give up just because you have bigger ships? Vex felt something he had never experienced during an ultimatum delivery. Real uncertainty. These humans were not behaving according to any pattern he understood. You have no idea what you're facing, he said, his voice rising slightly. The Grand Fleet has never been defeated. Admiral Vex Zorath commands ships that could turn your star into a weapon. Director Chen smiled, and Vex found the expression somehow more disturbing than any scream of terror he had ever heard. Ambassador, you have 71 hours and 34 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely. Captain Webb stepped forward again. I'll escort you back to your ship, Ambassador. I'm sure you have reports to make. As they walked through the station's corridors, Dex made one final attempt. Captain, surely you can see reason. Your species has potential. Serve the Empire. Faithfully, and humans could achieve positions of respect and authority. Resist us, and you'll all be dead within days. Webb stopped walking and looked at him with those disturbing human eyes. Tell me, Ambassador, how many of those 73 species you conquered put up any real fight? 15, Vex answered automatically. All were destroyed. Webb nodded. I thought so. Well, you're about to meet the first species that fought back and won. Impossible, Vex snapped. You have primitive technology, chemical rockets, and fusion reactors. We have quantum manipulation and dimensional weapons. Yes, Webb said simply. You do, and it won't be enough. They reached the docking bay where Vex's transport waited. As the ambassador prepared to leave, Webb spoke one more time. Ambassador, when you report back to your fleet commander, make sure you tell him something important. We tried to warn you. What happens next is entirely your choice. Dex climbed into his transport, his mind spinning. In 73 conquests, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were either displaying incredible courage or incredible stupidity. As his ship departed the primitive station, he found himself hoping it was stupidity. Admiral Vex stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive dreadnought, Eternal Dominion. Through the transparent walls, he could see the rest of the Grand Fleet taking positions throughout the Sol system. 300 warships, each one a masterpiece of Corvathian engineering and a testament to the Empire's power. The smallest escort vessel was larger than anything humans had ever built. The largest dreadnoughts could crack planets with their main weapons. Vex had commanded fleets for 8 centuries, and he had never seen anything that could stand against the combined might of the Grand Fleet. Status report, Vex commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered entire star systems. All ships in position, Admiral, reported Commander Kith Soroth, his tactical officer and distant relative. The humans have deployed their entire fleet to intercept us. 47 vessels total. Vex studied the tactical display showing the human ships. They were pathetic. Simple metal constructions with primitive fusion drives and chemical rocket systems. No energy shields that his sensors could detect, no advanced weapons systems, no sign of any technology that could threaten even his smallest ship. What are they armed with? Vex asked. Kinetic weapons mostly, Commander Kith replied. Some missile systems with nuclear warheads, but they're primitive fission devices. Nothing that could penetrate our shields. Vex shook his head. Either the humans were complete amateurs at space warfare, or they had some strategy he couldn't perceive. Given their technology level, he assumed it was the former. Admiral, the communications officer announced, Ambassador Vex is requesting immediate conference. Put him through. Vex's image appeared on the main display, and Vex could see that his old friend looked troubled. In 7 centuries of delivering ultimatums, nothing should have been able to disturb Dex's composure. Admiral, Dex said, I've completed the delivery. The humans have refused to surrender. Of course they have, Vex replied. They always refuse at first. What was their reaction when you showed them our fleet? Dex hesitated. That's what concerns me, Admiral. They showed no fear whatsoever. Their leader, a female called Director Chen, was completely calm. She even gave us an ultimatum of our own. They gave us an ultimatum. Vex laughed. What did these primitives demand? That we withdraw from their system within 72 hours. Vex's laughter was genuine now. Withdraw. These creatures with chemical rockets ordered the Grand Fleet to withdraw. What did you tell them? I explained our capabilities, sir. I showed them. The fleet displays made clear what would happen if they resisted. Vex paused. Admiral, they didn't care. They acted like they expected to win. Vex studied his old friend's face on the screen. Vex was many things, but he was not given to imagination or paranoia. If he was concerned, there might be a reason. Did they demonstrate any weapons? Vex asked. Show any technology we haven't seen? No, sir. Everything appeared primitive. Vex paused again. But Admiral, there was something about the way they spoke, the way they carried themselves. It was like they knew something we didn't. What they know, Vex said firmly, is that they're about to be conquered. How much time remains on their ultimatum? 68 hours, sir. Excellent. That gives us time to position for optimal bombardment patterns. We'll begin the attack the moment their deadline expires. The next 68 hours passed with strange quietness. Vex watched as his fleet moved into perfect attack formations around the human positions. The humans made no aggressive moves. Their ships maintained position between the Grand Fleet and Earth, but they didn't advance or attempt to target Corvathian vessels. They simply waited. It was the most unusual pre-battle behavior Vex had ever witnessed. Typically, when faced with overwhelming force, species either surrendered immediately or launched desperate attacks, hoping to inflict some damage before being destroyed. The humans did neither. They just waited, as if they had all the time in the universe. Admiral, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Let's hear what they have to say. The main display showed a human male in a simple blue uniform. He appeared to be standing on the bridge of one of their primitive ships. Behind him, Vex could see other humans working at basic control stations. I'm Captain Marcus Webb of the Soul Defense Fleet, the human said. Am I speaking to the commander of the invading fleet? You are, Vex replied. I am Admiral Vex Zorath of the Grand Fleet. Your ultimatum deadline has expired. You have one final an opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate the futility of resistance. Webb smiled, and Vex found the expression oddly unsettling. Admiral, your 72-hour deadline expired 6 minutes ago. You are now in violation of our territorial sovereignty. I am ordering you to withdraw immediately. You're ordering me? Vex couldn't believe what he was hearing. Human, do you see my fleet? 300 warships, each one capable of destroying your largest cities, and you're giving me orders. Yes, Webb said calmly. I am, because unlike you, Admiral, I know what's about to happen next. What's about to happen, Vex said, is the complete annihilation of your species. Webb shook his head. No, Admiral. What's about to happen is that you're going to attack us with everything you have. And then you're going to discover why humanity never retreats, never surrenders, and never forgives. Asterisk, the reckoning Admiral Vex Zoroth stared at the human on his display screen, trying to understand the source of their impossible confidence. Captain, Webb stood calmly on his primitive bridge, showing no sign of fear or desperation. Behind him, human crew members went about their duties with the same unsettling composure. You're bluffing, Vex said finally. You have 47 ships against 300. You have primitive technology against the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. This isn't courage, Captain. This is suicide. Webb's smile never wavered. Admiral, I'm going to make this very simple for you. In 30 seconds, I'm going to order my fleet to open fire. When that happens, you'll have exactly one chance to surrender before we destroy every ship in your fleet. Vex felt his heart skip a beat. The human spoke with such absolute certainty that for a moment doubt crept into his mind. Then training and experience reasserted themselves. This was psychological warfare, nothing more. A desperate attempt to make him hesitate. "You'll give us a chance to surrender," Vex said. "You have 47 primitive ships against the Grand Fleet, and you think we'll surrender to you?" "I'm hoping you will," Webb replied, "because the alternative is going to be very unpleasant for everyone involved." "You're insane." "Maybe," Webb said. "We'll find out in 10 seconds. Vex cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, prepare to fire. Target their flagship first. Let's end this delusion quickly. 5 seconds to optimal firing range, Admiral," the tactical officer reported. Vex watched the countdown on his display. In moments, this bizarre conversation would be over. The human fleet would be debris, and Earth would burn. It would be another victory for the Empire, though perhaps the strangest one in his long career. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out. "Suddenly, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human ships." "What kind of signatures?" "I'm not sure, sir. They're unlike anything in our databases." Vex frowned. "Are they powering weapons?" "Unknown, sir. The readings don't match any." "Known weapon system." "Sir," the weapons officer announced, "we're in optimal firing range." Vex looked at the human fleet on his tactical display. 47 small, primitive ships against the might of the Grand Fleet. It should have been a massacre. "Admiral," the communications officer spoke up, "the humans are transmitting again. Put it through." Webb's face reappeared on the screen. "Time's up, Admiral. Last chance to withdraw." Vex made his decision. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human fleet." The response was immediate. 300 Corvathian warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, quantum torpedoes that could phase through any known defense, gravity missiles that could crush diamond like paper. The combined firepower of the Grand Fleet lit up space like a newborn star. The weapons reached a human flagship, a modest vessel Webb had called the UES Defiance, and then something impossible happened. The weapons stopped. All of them. Every beam, every missile, every quantum torpedo simply vanished as if they had never existed. On his screen, Captain Webb smiled again. "Admiral Vex, you just made a very poor choice. Now let me show you what human weapons actually look like." Vex stared at his tactical displays in complete disbelief. His sensors showed impossible readings. His entire fleet had just fired enough energy to crack a moon, and the human ships hadn't even been scratched. Every weapon had simply disappeared before impact. "Damage report," he barked. "Sir," his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. "I'm reading massive spatial distortions around the human vessels. It's like they're surrounded by some kind of field that nullifies incoming attacks at the quantum level." "Impossible," Vex muttered. "No known technology can simply eliminate quantum weapons." "Admiral," the weapons officer called out, "the humans are returning fire." On the main screen, Vex watched as the human fleet launched what appeared to be simple missiles. They moved slowly compared to Corvathian weapons, almost casually drifting through space toward his ships. There were only a few dozen of them, nothing that should threaten his massive fleet. "Defensive systems online," he ordered. "Those missiles won't even scratch our shields." But as he watched, something terrifying happened. The first human missile reached the dreadnought, Infinite Power, one of his most formidable ships. Instead of exploding against the energy shields, the missile passed through them as if they were made of light. It struck the hull with no visible flash, no explosion, no dramatic display at all. Then the infinite power began to change. The massive warship started to fold in on itself, its hull bending and twisting in impossible ways. The ship's structure compressed, smaller and smaller, until the mighty dreadnought was nothing more than a point of light that winked out of existence. By the eternal void, Vex whispered, "They're collapsing our ships into singularities." More human missiles were reaching his fleet now. Each one behaved differently, demonstrating weapons technology that violated everything Vex thought he knew about physics. The heavy cruiser Stellar Conqueror was hit by a missile that seemed to age it rapidly. In seconds, the gleaming warship became a corroded hulk that crumbled into space dust. The destroyer Swift Death was struck by another type of weapon. A perfect sphere of nothingness appeared in its center, and the matter that had been there simply ceased to exist. The ship tried to maintain structural integrity with a massive hole through its core, failed and broke apart. "How are they doing?" "This," Vex demanded. "Unknown, sir," his science officer replied in a horrified whisper. "These weapons appear to manipulate fundamental forces, gravity, time, space itself. I've never seen anything like it. All ships, evasive maneuvers," Vex commanded. "Don't let those missiles reach you." But it was too late. A second wave of human weapons launched, these glowing with a different energy signature. When they struck their targets, Vex witnessed something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The battleship Cosmic Dominance was hit by one of these new weapons, and suddenly every atom in the ship began moving backward through time. The crew aged in reverse, becoming younger and younger, until they simply ceased to exist. The ship itself unraveled, its construction reversing until it became nothing more than raw materials floating in space. "They're weaponizing temporal mechanics," his science officer reported, his voice barely a whisper. A third wave launched from the human fleet. These weapons pulsed with an energy that made Vex's instruments scream warnings. When the first one struck the super dreadnought Eternal Victory, something even worse happened. The ship didn't explode. It didn't collapse or age or disappear. Instead, it began to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Vex could see overlapping images of the vessel, dozens of them, each slightly different, each in a different state of destruction. The ship was experiencing every possible outcome of being hit by the weapon at once. The crew's final transmission was a chorus of screams from beings experiencing infinite deaths simultaneously. "Dimensional warfare," Vex said numbly. "They're attacking us across multiple realities." His fleet was dying around him, not exploding in glorious battle as Corvathian ships were meant to do, but being systematically erased from existence by weapons that shouldn't exist. Some ships were compressed into points of infinite density. Others aged into dust in seconds. Still others were deleted from multiple dimensions at once. "All ships, retreat," Vex ordered. "Full withdrawal. Emergency. Jump." But when his ships tried to enter hyperspace, they found their escape routes blocked by fields of twisted space-time. The humans had somehow weaponized the fabric of reality itself, creating barriers that prevented faster-than-light travel. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 70% of the fleet. The humans haven't taken a single casualty." Vex stared at his displays showing the battle. It wasn't a battle at all. It was an execution. His mighty grand fleet, conqueror of 73 worlds, was being casually dismantled by weapons he couldn't even begin to understand. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're receiving another transmission from the human flagship." Webb's face appeared on the screen again. He looked calm, almost regretful. "Admiral Vex," he said, "I'm going to offer you something we've never offered to any aggressive species before. Surrender now, and we'll stop firing. Your surviving crews will be rescued and treated according to galactic conventions." Treated according to conventions? Vex stared at the screen. "You're destroying my entire fleet with weapons that violate the laws of physics." "We're neutralizing your fleet," Webb corrected. "If we wanted to destroy it completely, Admiral, you'd all be dead already. These are our defensive weapons. We're trying very hard not to kill anyone unnecessarily." Vex felt reality shift around him. Defensive weapons. The humans were annihilating the most powerful fleet in the galaxy with weapons they considered defensive. "What are your offensive weapons like?" he asked in a whisper. Webb's expression grew very serious. "You don't want to find out, Admiral. Please order your remaining ships to surrender. We can stop this right now." Vex looked around his bridge. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders. Through the viewports, he could see the wreckage of his fleet floating in space. Ships that had never known defeat, reduced to cosmic debris. "In minutes, sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "we could target their planet directly. One final strike." For a moment, Vex considered it. One last attack on Earth itself, to show these humans that the Corvathian Empire didn't surrender without extracting a price. Admiral Webb said, as if reading his thoughts, "I strongly advise against targeting our planet. You've seen our defensive weapons. You don't want to see our planetary defense systems. You can't defend an entire world," Vex said desperately. "We can," Webb replied simply. "But if you attack Earth, we'll stop being polite. Your crews will start dying. Your ships will be completely destroyed instead of just neutralized. Is your pride worth that many lives?" Vex closed his eyes. In 8 centuries of military service, he had never faced a decision like this. Surrender to primitives, or watch the remainder of his fleet die for nothing. "All ships," he said quietly, "stand down. Surrender to the human fleet, Admiral." His weapons officer asked in shock. "You heard me," Vex said. "Power down all weapons. Transmit the surrender code." On the screen, Webb nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. That was the right choice. We'll begin rescue operations immediately." As human ships moved to assist the damaged Corvathian vessels, Vex slumped in his command chair. The Grand Fleet was finished. 8 centuries of conquest, 73 worlds subjugated. And it had all ended in less than an hour against an enemy that had been toying with them. "Sir," his communications officer said, "Ambassador Vex is requesting permission to speak with you." "Put him through." Vex's image appeared, and Vex could see the shock in his old friend's face. Admiral Vex said, "What happened out there?" Vex looked at the wreckage floating around them, at the human ships moving to rescue Corvathian survivors. "We found out why humanity never retreats, old friend. They weren't primitive. They were patient. They'd been developing weapons technology for centuries while we conquered easier targets. But our ships, our weapons, our shields, useless," Vex said simply. "Completely useless against technology we can't even comprehend. And Vex, they were holding back. Those were their defensive weapons. They could have erased us from existence in seconds if they had wanted to." As human rescue ships approached his damaged flagship, Vex realized The galaxy had just changed forever. The age of Corvathian expansion was over. The age of humanity had begun, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered what other primitive species might be quietly developing technologies beyond imagination, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal what they were truly capable of. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. Never underestimate a species that has learned to survive against impossible odds, because when they finally decide to fight back, they don't just win, they reshape the very nature of warfare itself.